My daughter unwrapped her present only to find an empty box. My father laughed. Kids like her don't deserve gifts. My sister sneered. Just like her, Mom useless. Tears welled up in my daughter's eyes, but she softly said, I have a present for you too, Grandpa. When he opened it, his face went pale. The Christmas lights were doing that weird flickering thing again, the one that made the Kendrick living room in Beaverton look like some discount holiday movie set. 8-year-old Lily sat cross-legged on the carpet that Harold had complained about last summer. Who picks beige with a child in the house? Her small fingers shook a little as she reached for the box. Ethan watched from his spot by the fireplace, that familiar knot in his gut growing tighter. God, he hated these family things now. 2 years since Amanda split, and somehow every gathering felt worse than the last. Harold, Dad, whatever Ethan was supposed to call him these days, watched Lily like she was a science experiment. Claire just sat there in that ridiculous sweater she probably bought just for tonight. $300. Easy. Always dressed like she was expecting photographers. Lily peeled the paper carefully, saving the bow like she always did. That was Amanda's thing too. Used to drive Ethan crazy. Just rip it already. But now it just made his chest hurt. Time seemed to stretch like taffy as Lily finally got the box open. Her face did this thing where the smile just froze, then slowly melted away. She looked inside, turned the box upside down. Nothing. Absolutely nothing fell out. But the word came out of Lily's mouth, all small and confused. Then Harold let out this bark of a laugh, not the kind that means something's funny, the kind that cuts. Kids like her don't deserve gifts, he announced, taking another swig from his mug like he'd just delivered some profound wisdom. His eyes locked onto Ethan's in that way that always made Ethan feel 16 again. 16 and perpetually disappointing. Claire leaned forward, her designer sweater catching the light. Just like her mom useless, she threw in, careful to keep her voice light, as if that made it okay. Ethan felt his back teeth grinding, his body tensed up, ready to what? Make a scene? Start another one of those arguments that never went anywhere? But before he could figure it out, something happened with Lily's face. Tears filled her eyes, but kinda just hung there, refusing to fall. Then Lily's shoulders did this tiny little squaring thing that reminded Ethan so much of himself, it almost hurt. She set the stupid empty box down gently, because that's the kind of kid she wasn't, reached behind the tree. She pulled out something wrapped in what looked like leftover construction paper from school, tied up with yellow yarn that definitely came from Ms. Peterson's art class. I have a present for you too, Grandpa, she said, voice soft but steady, even though her chin had that slight wobble. Nobody said a word. The silence felt heavy, like right before a storm hits. Harold's smug look sorta hiccuped. That's the only way Ethan could describe it. For half a second, his dad looked uncertain, which was like seeing a mountain suddenly question its mountainness. Claire shifted in her chair. Whatever mean follow-up she'd been planning died right there. The room felt different suddenly, when the pressure changes and your ears need to pop. Harold took Lily's gift like it might bite him. His fingers worked at the yarn with this exaggerated slowness, that thing he did when he wanted to show how little he cared. The paper tore loudly under his fingers. He wasn't being careful with it at all, not like Lily had been with his gift. The paper was from school. Ethan recognized the half-erased pencil marks on the back. Ethan moved closer without really deciding to. Somewhere in his head, alarm bells were going off. 2 years of this, 2 years of standing by while Harold and Claire tag-teamed him with comments about his parenting, about how he couldn't keep Amanda, about how Lily was showing signs of whatever they decided was wrong that week. Harold finally got the box open. He looked inside and his face did something Ethan had never seen before. It went from ruddy to chalk white so fast it was almost funny. Almost. Harold's hands weren't steady anymore as he pulled out a photograph that looked like it'd been around since dinosaurs roamed. The edges were all yellow and curled in. The colors had that washed-out look that old photos get. But you could still make it out clear as day. Harold, maybe 30 years younger, holding baby Ethan and looking at him like he was the center of the universe or something. Where'd you get this? Harold's voice came out all wrong, thin and reedy. Lily glanced at Ethan before answering this quick little, "Is this okay?" "Look. Found it in those boxes in the attic when we were looking for the Christmas stuff. Daddy said they were great-grandma's things." Ethan's mom had been gone 5 years before Lily was even born. She'd taken all the warmth with her when she went, or maybe Harold had just stopped pretending after that. Either way, Ethan had never seen this photo before. His mother must have tucked it away somewhere, keeping it safe from whatever Harold had become. "There's more," Lily said, pointing at the box like it contained buried treasure. Under the photo was this small, beat-up journal. The leather cover was cracked in places, dried out from years in the attic. Harold's hands were definitely shaking now as he flipped it open to the first page. Even from where he stood, Ethan recognized his mother's handwriting, immediately those loopy letters she'd use when writing birthday cards. "Harold's thoughts on becoming a father," Harold read, his voice breaking in the middle. "I've never seen him so happy as when he holds Ethan. He says he'll never let anything hurt our boy, that he'll be a better father than his own." Ethan felt like someone had sucked all the air out of the room. His dad had never not once talked about his own childhood, not a word about his parents. It was like Harold Kendrick had sprung fully formed into the world, already disappointed by it. Claire actually got up out of her chair. She practically hovered over Harold's shoulder, trying to see the journal. "Grandma wrote down stuff you said when Daddy was a baby," Lily explained. "In that matter-of-fact way kids have that cuts right through adult pretense. She wrote stuff down for, like, 20 years. I only read a little bit because there were lots of pages, but she said you were super proud when Daddy finished college and that you cried when nobody was looking." Harold's jaw did this clenching thing as he flipped through more pages. Each one seemed to hit him like a physical blow. Ethan watched his dad's fingers pause here and there, his eyes moving back and forth really fast, like he was trying to absorb everything at once. Claire just stood there frozen, like someone had hit her pause button. The whole perfect Christmas scene she'd helped set up cast Harold as the justified patriarch. Ethan as the screw-up son was coming apart at the seams. "I thought," Lily continued, filling up the weird silence, "I thought maybe you forgot all that stuff. That's why you're always so mad at Daddy." Ethan nearly choked. Leave it to an 8-year-old to say what everyone was thinking. Through all the snide comments and cold shoulders, Lily had been watching everything, figuring it all out in her own way. Harold slammed the journal shut and put it down next to him on the couch. His face had gone from white to gray, like old concrete. The lines around his mouth got deeper, like someone was carving them in with a knife. This is just nonsense," he muttered. But it didn't come out right. The Harold Kendrick authority voice was missing. "Your grandmother was always sentimental about things that didn't matter." Lily's face fell at that, but she didn't give up. She had that look, the same stubborn expression Ethan used to wear before years of Harold's constructive criticism had sandpapered it away. "There's one more thing," she said, pointing toward the bottom of the box like she was directing traffic. Harold hesitated, actually hesitated, before reaching in again. This time he pulled out an envelope sealed with one of those dollar store Christmas stickers that never stick right. His name was written on the front in Lily's careful handwriting, the kind where you can tell she stuck her tongue out the side of her mouth while concentrating. "You gotta read it now," Lily insisted when Harold just sat there holding it. The room had gotten weirdly hot. Ethan could feel sweat prickling at his hairline. Claire had retreated to the Christmas tree and was messing with ornaments nobody had touched in hours. Her back turned like she was trying to physically remove herself from whatever was happening. Harold tore the envelope open with none of his usual precision. He unfolded a single sheet of paper covered in those bright crayon drawings. Kids always make trees that look like green cotton candy, people with stick arms coming out of their heads, that sort of thing. "Dear Grandpa," Harold started reading out loud, then just stopped. His eyes kept moving, but no sound came out. Ethan watched his father's face change again, color flooding back in, creeping up his neck and into his cheeks like a weird rash. Harold gripped the paper so hard the edges started to wrinkle up. "What's it say?" Claire finally asked, curiosity winning out over her sudden fascination with the tree ornaments. Harold didn't answer her. Instead, he looked at Lily, really looked at her maybe for the first time since Amanda had packed her bags and walked out. I know you don't like me and Daddy, Lily had written in those big, wobbly kid letters. But I still love you 'cause you're my grandpa, and 'cause Daddy used to tell me stories about when you taught him to fish and build stuff. I wish you could be that grandpa instead of the mad one. Mom leaving wasn't Daddy's fault or mine. She told me so before she left. To be my real grandpa someday, I'll wait. Love, Lily. The words hung in the air like they were actual physical things. Ethan felt something crack inside him, not the painful kind of crack that had become his constant companion these past couple years, but more like when you finally work out a kink in your back that's been there forever. Harold carefully folded the letter back up and slid it into the envelope, moving like someone underwater. When he finally looked up, his face had changed into something Ethan couldn't quite place. You told her about the fishing? Harold asked, looking straight at Ethan. The weird thing was there was no accusation in it, just a question. Ethan nodded, not trusting whatever might come out if he opened his mouth. Those fishing trips had been these rare moments. Before Mom died, before Amanda walked out, before Harold turned into whatever version of Harold he was now. He tells me about when you caught a fish, 3's big, Lily said, stretching her arms out as far as they'd go. But then it jumped back in the water 'cause you were laughing too hard to hold on to it. Harold made this noise not quite a laugh, not quite a sob. He covered it up with a fake cough, but not before Ethan caught it. Not before he saw that tiny crack in the great Harold Kendrick wall of emotional constipation. Claire wandered back toward them, her face softening around the edges. She dropped the Ice Queen act for a minute, which was almost as shocking as Harold's almost laugh. I remember that fish, she said quietly. You wouldn't shut up about it for, like, weeks afterward, Dad. You kept saying it was the one time Ethan didn't overthink something and just reacted. There wasn't any bite to it this time. She was just remembering. It was like a flashback to before everything got so twisted up. Ethan felt this tiny flicker of something. Not hope exactly, he wasn't that naive anymore, but possibility maybe. Harold cleared his throat in that way people do when they're super uncomfortable with actual human emotions. He looked like a man who suddenly found himself in quicksand after a lifetime of solid ground. I have another gift, Harold announced out of nowhere, standing up so abruptly he knocked the journal to the floor. He walked over to the coat closet by the front door, moving all stiff like his joints hurt, something Ethan had never seen him acknowledge before. Ethan and Claire exchanged this look, part confusion, part, what fresh hell is this? This wasn't how these things went. Harold gave meaningless or pointed gifts. Claire backed him up with some cutting remark. Ethan tried and failed to shield Lily from the whole toxic mess. That was the script. Harold came back lugging this big package, wrapped in plain brown paper, the kind you get from the hardware store. He set it down in front of Lily with a soft grunt. This was supposed to be for later, he said gruffly. After you'd learned your lesson about expectations. Lily just stared at the package, her hands hovering over it like she was afraid it might be a trap. She shot a look at Ethan that, is this safe? Look, she'd developed after too many emotional landmines from her grandfather and aunt. Ethan gave her a tiny nod, though his heart was doing this weird galloping thing. Experience had taught him to expect the worst when Harold presented himself as reasonable. Moving like she was defusing a bomb, Lily peeled the paper back to reveal a dollhouse. Not one of those plastic ones from Target, but a handmade wooden one with incredible detail. Tiny furniture filled the room's each piece, carved and painted like Harold had spent hours and hours on it, which he must have. You made this? Lily whispered, her finger tracing the tiny staircase like it was made of gold. Harold gave this short, sharp nod, his face still guarded but different somehow. Started it back in September, Harold admitted, sounding like the words were being dragged out of him. Your father mentioned something about you liking one at your friend's house. Ethan just stared. He had mentioned something about Lily going nuts over Sophie's dollhouse during one of those painful 5-minute phone calls they'd had months ago. He'd tossed it out there during an awkward silence, never imagining Harold was actually listening, actually filing it away. It's so pretty, Lily breathed, examining each tiny room with growing excitement. It looks just like the house in that book you got me, Daddy. Claire moved closer, giving the dollhouse her typical, critical once-over. You haven't done woodworking since. She didn't finish the thought. Since Mom died. Harold's shoulders went up around his ears at Claire's comment. Had the tools just sitting there collecting dust, he muttered, waving his hand dismissively. Seemed practical. But Ethan knew that move. Harold always hid behind practical when feelings threatened to make an appearance. The dollhouse meant hours of work, planning, measuring, careful painting. All for a granddaughter he claimed couldn't behave properly. Thank you, Grandpa, Lily said, getting up and walking over to Harold with these careful, measured steps. She stopped just short of hugging him. Smart kid knew Harold, tensed up like a cat in a bathtub whenever anyone tried to touch him. Instead, she looked up at him with those serious eyes of hers. Can you show me how you made those tiny chairs? Something in Harold's face just shifted. Not dramatically, Harold didn't do dramatic, but enough that he suddenly looked like a different person. Chairs were a pain in the... Harold caught himself, glancing at Lily. They were tricky, he amended, lowering himself down on one knee beside her. He moved stiffly, but that had nothing to do with his joints, and everything to do with how foreign this kind of interaction was to him. Had to use this special little carving knife for the details on the backs, he explained, pointing with a finger that had a bandage Ethan hadn't noticed before. While Harold was showing Lily the dollhouse features, Ethan felt a touch on his arm. He turned to find Claire watching him with this weird expression on her face, something between guilty and defiant. The empty box was my idea, she admitted in this low voice, glancing over to make sure Harold couldn't hear. Thought it would teach her not to expect special treatment just 'cause she's a kid. The casual cruelty hit Ethan all over again. Why? Was all he could manage. Claire's perfect makeup couldn't hide the way her face kinda crumpled around the edges. Because it's not fair, she whispered fiercely. You took off for college, then got married, and had your perfect little family. I stayed. I dealt with Dad after Mom died. I watched him turn into... that. She jerked her chin toward Harold. And then, you had the nerve to fall apart when Amanda left. The bitterness in her voice wasn't news to Ethan, but the raw honesty behind it was. For 2 years, Claire had been Harold's right-hand woman in the Make Ethan Feel Like Crap campaign. He just figured she enjoyed it. I didn't know, Ethan said lamely, which had to be the understatement of the freaking century. Course you didn't, Claire said, but the usual edge was missing from her voice. You were too busy feeling sorry for yourself after Amanda bailed. Just like Dad was after Mom died. She glanced over at Harold, who was showing Lily how the roof came off to see the attic. We're all so much alike it's actually kind of sickening. Ethan followed her gaze, seeing the parallel for the first time. Dad shutting down after Mom, him shutting down after Amanda. History doing that thing where it repeats itself because nobody was paying attention the first time around. And there was Lily, somehow figuring it all out at 8 years old when none of the actual adults could. I'm sorry, he said to Claire, and meant it. Claire let out this little laugh, not mean, just surprised. Think that's the first real apology any Kendrick has offered since. God, I don't even know when. She straightened her sweater like she was putting herself back together. For what it's worth, I'm sorry too. About the box. About, well, all of it. Across the room, Harold had pulled out a pocket knife and was showing Lily how he'd carved the windowsills. His movements were careful, his explanation patient. Like watching some alternate universe version of Harold, or maybe the original version, before life and loss had turned him into something else. You think anything's actually going to change? Ethan asked, not really sure if he was asking Claire or just thinking out loud. No idea, Claire said, watching their dad and Lily with this complicated look on her face. But that journal, I had no clue Mom kept something like that. Ethan nodded, looking at the leather-bound book still sitting on the couch where Harold had dropped it. Me neither. Lily found it completely by accident when we were digging through those old boxes. Kids, huh? Claire murmured. Then she hesitated, fiddling with her watch. Amanda called me, last month. Ethan's head whipped around so fast, he nearly gave himself whiplash. What? Why didn't you tell me? Because she wasn't calling about you, Claire said, her voice gentler than Ethan had heard in years. She wanted to know if Lily was okay. If you were managing. She met his eyes straight on. I told her you were bombing it completely, and Lily would be better off with her. The words hit Ethan like a sucker punch. You had no right, he started, feeling that old familiar anger bubbling up, the same hot defensive feeling that had fueled way too many family blowouts over the past couple years. Claire held up her hand. I know that now. She cut in, the admission clearly costing her. I was wrong, okay? And after watching Lily tonight, she swallowed hard, like the words were sticking in her throat. You're a good dad, Ethan. Better than ours was. Better than I gave you credit for. From across the room came this sound Ethan hardly recognized anymore, Lily's laugh. Both he and Claire turned toward it automatically, like flowers to the sun. Harold had placed one of the tiny wooden people in Lily's palm, and she was examining it with this look of pure joy. She looks like Mom when she smiles, Claire said quietly. The rest of the evening was weird. Not bad weird, just nothing like what Ethan had expected when they'd pulled up to the house earlier. Harold helped Lily arrange furniture in the dollhouse, explaining each piece with this patience nobody knew he had. Claire brought out dessert and gave Lily the biggest slice of pie without a single comment about sugar making kids hyper. Later, while Ethan was helping Lily into her coat to head home, Harold approached them with this awkward, halting walk like he wasn't sure he was allowed to be there. I thought maybe, he began, his voice all rough around the edges, you could bring Lily over next weekend. There's a shelf in her dollhouse that needs proper hinges. Ethan met his father's eyes, seeing not some miracle transformation, those only happened in movies, but a crack in the wall, a place where light might eventually get through. Yeah, he said simply. We'd like that. Driving home through the quiet streets, Christmas lights blinking from houses on both sides like multicolored stars, Lily sat with the dollhouse carefully balanced on her lap. Her eyes were getting heavy, blinking slower and slower as she fought sleep. Did I do good, Daddy? She asked, her words slightly slurred with tiredness. With Grandpa's present? Ethan reached over and squeezed her small hand, his throat suddenly tight. You did amazing, kiddo. How'd you know what to give him? Lily yawned big enough to crack her jaw. You always say people get mad when they're really sad about something else. Her eyes drifted closed as she added, just wanted to remind Grandpa about the happy stuff, so maybe he wouldn't be so sad anymore. Ethan drove through the night, carrying his daughter and her new dollhouse home, thinking about empty boxes and how sometimes the things we need most are hiding in plain sight, not fixing everything, not erasing the hard parts, but offering just enough light to find our way forward.